The moment 7-year-old Amara Johnson stepped onto United Airways Flight 3691 from Atlanta to New York, a ripple of curiosity moved through the cabin. Heads turned to watch the little girl in her canary yellow dress, who walked with surprising composure for someone her age. In one hand, she clutched a well-loved stuffed elephant named Nala. In the other, she held tight to her mother's fingers, oblivious to how her family name would soon send shockwaves through the airplane. In just under 3 hours, generations of secrets would unravel, shifting the course of multiple lives forever. Danielle Johnson guided her daughter down the narrow aisle, acutely aware of the glances cast their way. After 15 years as a black woman climbing the ranks of corporate America, Danielle had honed an instinct for reading the difference between innocent curiosity and something more layered, something laced with judgment. Today, she sensed both. But the yellow dress was Amara's choice, a birthday gift from her grandmother that made her feel like sunlight walking. Danielle had long since learned to let her daughter claim joy wherever she found it, even as she quietly prepared Amara for a world that might not always celebrate her brilliance. Row 16, seats A and B, Danielle murmured to herself, double-checking their boarding passes. By the window like I wanted, right, Mommy? Amara asked, bouncing on her toes. The colorful beads at the end of her braids clinked softly with each movement. Exactly, Danielle replied with a warm smile. You can watch the clouds shape-shift all the way to New York. Amara clapped her hands with excitement. Nala wants to find an elephant in the clouds, she declared. Danielle chuckled softly, helping her daughter settle into the window seat before placing their carry-on in the overhead compartment. As the plane continued to board, Danielle pulled out her tablet to review the final draft of a critical presentation. It was her first major client pitch since becoming senior marketing director at Helios Strategies, and she needed it to go flawlessly. But the trip wasn't just about business. It was also Amara's first time meeting her great-grandfather, Colonel Ezra Johnson. At 94, his health was declining fast. This visit might be their only chance for Amara to know him beyond photographs and stories. Danielle was so focused on her screen that she didn't notice the flight attendant approach until the woman cleared her throat. "Excuse me," came a voice, polite but mechanical. Danielle looked up to see a blonde woman with a practiced smile and an overly cheerful tone. Her name tag read Brittany. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Brittany said, "but we need to make a last-minute seating adjustment." Danielle's shoulders tensed. "Is there a problem with our seats?" "Not exactly," Brittany replied, her voice lowering conspiratorially. "We have another family that needs to sit together, and we're hoping you and your daughter will be willing to move to row 30. Danielle glanced back. Row 30 was near the restrooms, just in front of a couple traveling with twin toddlers already kicking their seats in agitation. More importantly, it was a full 11 rows away from their original seats, and from the window Amara had been so excited about. "I booked these seats months ago," Danielle said, keeping her tone level. "We specifically chose them so my daughter and I could sit together." Brittany's smile never wavered, but her eyes hardened. "The other family would like to sit together as well," she said. "It's 2 adults and their son. They're traveling first class, but need to be closer to the lavatories for medical reasons." Danielle followed the flight attendant's gaze. A white family stood nearby, a tall, distinguished-looking man in his 40s, a blonde woman with a kind of effortless style born of wealth, and a boy around Amara's age, wearing an expensive private school uniform. He looked both bored and annoyed. "If they're in first class," Danielle asked calmly, "why can't they be moved to other first-class seats near the front lavatory?" Brittany's smile thinned. "Those seats are already occupied by our premium customers." Danielle absorbed the implication. She and Amara, despite having paid full fare, were somehow less valuable. Amara's hand tightened on hers. Even at 7, she knew what this moment was. It was the same unspoken exclusion Danielle had quietly prepared her for. "I'm sorry," Danielle said firmly, "but we're staying in the seats we paid for. I have work to do, and my daughter and I need to remain together." The distinguished man took a step forward. His voice was smooth, confident. "Perhaps I can explain. I am Dr. Charles Whitman. My son has a medical condition that requires him to be close to the facilities. We would be deeply grateful for your understanding." Danielle met his gaze evenly. "I'm sorry to hear about your son's condition, Dr. Whitman, but I'm sure there are other passengers traveling alone who might be more easily accommodated. We've already asked several others." Brittany interjected quickly, though Danielle had seen no evidence of such efforts. Amara tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice carrying farther than she realized. "Is this like when they made us sit by the kitchen at that fancy restaurant, even though we had a reservation?" A flush of discomfort crept across DR. Whitman's face. His wife touched his arm, her manicured fingers resting there, as if to still him. "Charles," she said softly, "let's not cause a scene. We can find another solution." Before anyone could respond, another flight attendant appeared. An older woman with iron gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her name tag read Margaret. She exuded the authority of someone who had been enforcing policies since the days of smoking sections. "Is there a problem here?" Margaret asked, her tone making it clear that any problem would soon be solved, her way. "These passengers are refusing to move to accommodate a family with medical needs," Brittany explained. Margaret turned her attention to Danielle, giving her a slow, appraising look before glancing at Amara's bright yellow dress. "Ma'am," she said, "we need you to comply with crew member instructions. It's a safety issue." "With all due respect," Danielle replied, her voice taking on the crisp clarity she used in boardrooms. "Asking me to move seats as a courtesy is not a safety issue. We're remaining in the seats we paid for." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "What's your name, ma'am?" "Danielle Johnson," she answered, and then gently, "This is my daughter, Amara Johnson." Something flickered across Margaret's face. Surprise, confusion, and then something deeper. Her gaze sharpened as she studied them both more closely. "Johnson," Margaret repeated. "Any relation to Colonel Ezra Johnson?" Danielle blinked. "He's my grandfather. Amara's great-grandfather." The transformation was immediate and startling. Margaret's stern expression softened, replaced with something close to reverence. "Colonel Ezra Johnson," Margaret repeated, almost to herself. "Tuskegee Airman. Red Tails." Danielle nodded, still puzzled. "That's him. We're flying to New York to visit him." Margaret turned back to Brittany, then addressed the Whitmans. "These passengers will be keeping their assigned seats," she said firmly. "Come with me. We'll find another arrangement." "DR." Whitman opened his mouth to protest, but Margaret silenced him with a glance. "Sir," she said coolly, "Colonel Johnson escorted my father's bomber out of enemy territory in 1944. My father lived to come home and have a family. Because of him, these passengers are keeping their seats." As Margaret ushered the Whitmans away, Brittany lingered, her expression unreadable. "I apologize for the confusion, Miss Johnson," she said, though her tone lacked sincerity. "Can I get you, or your daughter, anything before takeoff?" Once she was gone, Amara turned to her mother, eyes wide. "Mommy," she whispered. "Why did she change her mind when she heard great-grandpa's name?" Danielle smoothed her daughter's braids. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "our names carry stories bigger than we know." As the plane taxied toward the runway, Danielle found herself wondering what other stories her grandfather had never told, and what they were about to uncover in New York.